phenomenon of pairing pigeons during a full moon has often been mentioned with a smile in the pigeon sport community, appearing almost like a fairy tale to those unaware of its intricacies. Years ago, a friend pointed out to me that I consistently paired my pigeons during a full moon, attributing my success in breeding high-quality pigeons to this practice. At that time, I had never heard of the full moon theory, but I listened to the seasoned enthusiasts who discussed it. They explained that coupling pigeons precisely during a full moon would result in superior offspring compared to other times. Through my investigation of this theory, I have discovered the following details. When we pair our pigeons during a full moon and take into account the time it takes for the eggs to be laid and hatch, we arrive at the exact moment when the young hatch from their eggs. Interestingly, this aligns with the subsequent full moon and the timing for coupling during that phase. The philosophy behind the full moon mating theory suggests that the young pigeons in the nest benefit most from the intensified rays of the sun reflected by the full moon. This continues for approximately 13 days until the next new moon. One might dismiss this as a myth, but I have examined my breeding records and compared the outcomes of pairings during full moon periods with those during other times. Consequently, I have developed a preference for coupling during full moons. Thus, there is a kernel of truth in this theory. But what role does the full moon actually play? During the period surrounding a full moon, there is often stable weather with ample sunshine. It is widely known that young animals require sunlight for proper development, and it certainly doesn't hurt if the loft is bathed in abundant sunlight during the first 14 days of a young pigeon's life. Moreover, in the pigeon sport, it is recognized that pigeons rely on sunlight for orientation. Could it be that these factors work together harmoniously? It is established that there is indeed a certain relationship between the orientation ability of homing pigeons and sunlight. Homing pigeons, migratory birds, certain salmon, and butterfly species share the common trait of possessing orientation skills. Whether or not they possess this ability largely depends on whether Mother Nature has bestowed it upon them. Similar to how a pigeon's body grows each day until it is ready to be weaned, the organ responsible for orientation skills also develops during the same period. This holds true for racing pigeons, migratory birds, and certain butterfly species like the monarch butterfly. However, there is one exception. Pigeon fanciers are the only ones who interfere in the development of the orientation ability. In fact, they determine what a young pigeon receives from Mother Nature to foster its orientation skills, or whether it receives anything at all. In the open air, the timing of pairing chosen by pigeon fanciers is usually different, as it is dictated by Mother Nature and the parent birds. One can observe this when various bird species simultaneously hatch in nests. Is this mere chance? Nonetheless, there are certain caveats. We must acknowledge that numerous factors, or properties, collaborate to ensure the successful return of a racing pigeon from a race, with orientation being one of them. Even in the wild, the development of orientation abilities does not always proceed as desired. In exceptional cases, migratory birds may still be present in nature during the middle of winter when they should have already embarked on their annual migration. There may also be migratory birds in our vicinity that we would not typically expect to encounter, often being birds less than a year old. The reason behind this lies in a specific developmental phase during which Mother Nature did not provide them with sufficient resources to develop their orientation skills successfully. In the past few decades, pigeon fanciers have also contributed to such deviations due to trends in widowhood, darkening techniques, tight and inflexible flight schedules, and the desire of every fancier to become a champion someday. A quick look at the statistics reveals that 30 years ago, half as many pigeon fanciers bred twice as many youngsters compared to the current scenario. Why do we engage in such practices? Primarily to have as many pigeons left after the young bird season as possible, yet the quantity and quality of these pigeons often prove disappointing when compared to the overall number produced. Homing pigeons, migratory birds, certain salmon, and butterfly species utilize a specific type of energy source for orientation during their homeward journey or annual migration to the south, or vice versa. Without the ability to generate or access this energy, these species, including homing pigeons, cannot orient themselves. The sun undoubtedly plays a vital role in this process. Every pigeon fancier knows from personal experience that the most beautiful and often the best offspring are bred during the months of April, May, and June. Furthermore, it is rare to lose any of these pigeons during races towards the end of the season. The difference between winter breeding and summer breeding is evident in the number of sunlight hours and the strength of the sun. Each year, the sun gains strength starting from the end of March, which we recognize as the onset of spring. The timing when the sun begins to strengthen is determined by the preceding full moon before the 21st of March. From that moment onwards, the sun progressively provides young pigeons with the necessary building blocks for developing their orientation skills. On the contrary, Young pigeons born before the date receive a proportionally lesser amount of these building blocks. It might be wise to adjust future coupling dates accordingly. Young pigeons, whose parents are paired in mid-February, always reap optimal benefits from the favorable conditions that Mother Nature offers them during their growth phase. In the past, the racing season would commence at the beginning of May, but now it starts a month earlier, with the desire to organize races even earlier. However, one could argue that the problems began with the advancement of flight programs. Previously, racing pigeons were coupled in mid-February, and winter breeding lofts were not as prevalent. To conclude, intervention in nature always comes with a price. Returning to the topic of pairing with a full moon, I will take it into consideration this year. If it does not yield benefits, it certainly won't be detrimental. Lunar influence. The full moon has long been associated with various phenomena and beliefs. It has captivated human imagination and has been linked to folklore, myths, and cultural practices throughout history. While scientific evidence may not fully support all claims, the moon's gravitational pull does have tangible effects on Earth, such as ocean tides. Animal behavior. Some studies suggest that certain animal behaviors may be influenced by the lunar cycle, including mating rituals, migration patterns, and feeding habits. For example, marine animals like coral spawn during specific lunar phases, and some species of birds adjust their migratory patterns based on the moon. Nocturnal activity. The brightness of the full moon can affect the behavior of nocturnal animals. It provides natural illumination, making it easier for animals to navigate, hunt, and communicate during nighttime hours. This can be observed in various nocturnal species, including owls, wolves, and certain insects. Circadian rhythms. The full moon's light can also influence the circadian rhythms of animals, which regulate their biological processes, including sleep-wake cycles and hormonal activity. Some studies suggest that certain animals, such as rodents and primates, may experience disrupted sleep patterns during full moon nights. Reproduction and breeding. In some species, lunar cycles are believed to synchronize with reproductive processes. For instance, certain marine organisms time their spawning activities with the lunar phases to optimize fertilization success. However, the extent to which the full moon directly affects reproduction in different animal species is still an area of scientific inquiry. It is important to note that while these observations and associations exist, the full moon's influence on specific animal behaviors and reproduction can vary widely across different species. Furthermore, scientific research in this field is ongoing, and our understanding of the full moon's effects continues to evolve. Overall, the full moon holds a place of intrigue and fascination in many aspects of life, including the natural world and cultural beliefs. Whether its influence on pigeon breeding and racing is scientifically proven or simply based on anecdotal evidence within the pigeon sport community remains a topic for further exploration and individual interpretation. A comprehensive guide to early season breeding of racing pigeons. Breeding racing pigeons is an art and science that requires precision, patience, and knowledge. Early season breeding, often starting in late winter or early spring, is a critical time for fanciers to set the foundation for their racing team. This report will delve into the essential steps from pairing to feeding and raising the young until they leave the nest. Drawing on 20 years of experience, I'll guide you through this rewarding process. 1. Preparing for the breeding season. A. Assessing breeding stock. The success of a breeding program begins with selecting the right breeders. Only pair pigeons with proven performance records or those with desirable genetic traits such as stamina, speed, and homing instinct. It's equally important to evaluate their physical health and vitality. Look for vibrant plumage, clear, bright eyes, robust musculature, an active demeanor. B. Health checks and conditioning. Before pairing, ensure your breeders are in peak condition. Conduct a thorough health check and consult a veterinarian to rule out parasites or infections. Follow these steps. Administer a pre-breeding worming treatment. Provide a multivitamin supplement for 2 weeks. Ensure the loft is clean, well ventilated, and free from drafts. C. Loft preparation. Prepare individual breeding compartments or nest boxes to minimize disturbances. Supply clean nesting materials like straw or pine needles. Maintain an environment that's well lit. Use natural daylight or artificial lighting to mimic spring conditions. Quiet and secure. Free from overcrowding. 2. Pairing racing pigeons. A. Timing. Pairing should begin early in the year to align with the natural breeding cycles. Ensure that light exposure mimics increasing day lengths. About 14 hours of light per day can stimulate mating behavior. B. Pairing techniques. Pairing can be either planned or natural. Planned pairings allow you to combine specific traits, while natural pairings rely on mutual attraction. In either case, introduce the male to the breeding compartment first. After a day or two, place the female in the same compartment. Monitor their behavior. Aggression may indicate incompatibility, while cooing and mutual preening show acceptance. C. Ensuring bond formation. Leave the pairs undisturbed for at least a week to establish their bond. Provide ample food, water, and nesting material during this time. 3. Egg laying and incubation. A. Egg laying. Typically, the female will lay her first egg 7 to 10 days after pairing, followed by a second egg 48 hours later. Ensure the nest is stable and secure. Both eggs are gently rotated daily to prevent yolk adhesion. B. Incubation. Both parents will take turns incubating the eggs, with the male usually covering the nest during the day and the female at night. The incubation period lasts about 17 to 18 days. C. Monitoring fertility. Candling the eggs around 7 days after laying can help identify fertility. Use a small flashlight to check for blood vessels. Discard any infertile eggs to prevent bacterial growth in the nest. 4. Hatching and early care. A. Hatchling arrival. Chicks usually hatch within 24 hours of each other. The parents will immediately begin feeding them crop milk, a nutrient-rich secretion. Ensure the loft is quiet and undisturbed. The parents have access to high-quality feed to produce sufficient crop milk. B. Supporting the parents. Provide a diet rich in protein and calcium to support the parents during this demanding period. Add supplements such as brewer's yeast, grit, and minerals. Vitamin D for calcium absorption. C. Monitoring growth. Daily checks ensure the chicks are feeding well and growing consistently. Look for firm, rounded crops after feeding. Clean skin and down feathers. Strong, steady growth. 5. Feeding the breeders and chicks. A. Breeder diet. A specialized breeder mix with higher protein levels, 16 to 18%, is essential. Incorporate seeds like peas, beans, and sunflower kernels, along with grains such as corn and wheat. Supplement the diet with probiotics for gut health. Grit to aid digestion. Fresh greens like spinach or kale. B. Feeding schedule. Feed twice daily, ensuring morning feeding is light to encourage activity. Evening feeding is heavier to sustain overnight needs. C. Transitioning chicks. By 10 to 14 days, the parents will begin mixing crop milk with solid food. At this stage, introduce small amounts of soaked seeds to familiarize the chicks with solid feed. 6. Fledging and independence. A. Leaving the nest. Chicks usually leave the nest at 21 to 28 days old. During this period, place perches at varying heights to encourage wing exercise. Monitor for signs of independence, such as pecking at food. B. Weaning. Weaning begins when the chicks show interest in eating on their own. Gradually separate them from their parents, providing a dedicated space with easy access to food and water. Consistent temperatures to reduce stress. Frequent handling to familiarize them with human interaction. C. Post-weaning care. Once independent, the young birds should receive a balanced mix of grains and seeds. Introduce training tosses to develop their homing instincts and flying endurance. 7. Common challenges and solutions. A. Infertility. If eggs fail to hatch, review pairing compatibility. Address potential health issues in breeders. Ensure optimal loft conditions. B. Weak chicks. Chicks failing to thrive may indicate insufficient parental nutrition. Adjust their diet. Bacterial infections. Consult a veterinarian. C. Parental neglect. If parents abandon the nest, foster the eggs or chicks with another pair. Use a brooder for artificial incubation and feeding. 8. Conclusion. Breeding racing pigeons early in the year requires meticulous planning and attention to detail. From selecting the right pairs to ensuring proper nutrition and care, every step is crucial to developing a healthy and competitive racing team. By following these guidelines, fanciers can maximize their chances of producing champion racers and enjoying the deeply rewarding experience of breeding these remarkable birds.